I'm Dan Zitt, Senior Vice President of Content Production for Penguin Random House Audio and co-host of the Ahab Breakdown. Last November, Julie Wilson and I hosted an episode of the Breakdown that focused on creating more opportunity for underrepresented actors in the audiobook industry, hoping to spark more conversation about representation, inclusivity, and equity. That conversation was a jumping off point, a springboard for an ongoing and meaningful dialogue that needs and deserves more time, more attention, and more transparency. I've always said that our business is more than a business, it's a community. Using this platform to encourage honest discussions and promote and foster change is something we are very passionate about. And I'm thrilled to have my very talented colleague and friend, January LaVoy, with us to host this special event. January, welcome, and thank you for so generously agreeing to join us today to lead this conversation. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Dan. I'm so happy to be here, and I'm really grateful to all of you at PRH. So thank you so much for giving us this time and this platform.
You're welcome.
So I'm sort of the de facto moderator. I'm not, sort of here to tell anybody what to think, but you do need somebody to say, all right, we've only got half an hour left. So that's me for today. But I am super excited to be joined by a really incredible group of folks who can join me anytime they feel like they want to join me. So this is a pretty informal thing. So I think we should all just go around, introduce ourselves a little bit, and then we'll start the chat. So I'm January LaVoy. I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm a college professor, a narrator, an activist, lots of things, cat owner. And I'm really honored and thrilled to be part of this conversation. So I'm gonna pass it along to Almarie.
Hey, all right. Hi, I'm Almari Guerra. I am an audiobook narrator as well as an actor. And right now, my main role is just being a mother. I'm pregnant at the moment. So if I forget names and things and details and facts, that's why. Or at least that's what I'm blaming it on. Thank you. And I have two little ones, two girls also at home. So that's what takes up most of my time, but very passionate about the audiobook industry and thrilled to be here talking about these new opportunities and inclusion and diversity.
Thank you. Hey, Nancy.
Hi. So, hi, everybody. I'm Nancy Wu, and I have been an audiobook narrator for a while, I guess mid-2000s. And I'm located now in Boulder, Colorado, but I was in New York City for a long time, which is, how I started doing audiobooks as an actor. I was an actor and lived abroad for a long time. But now finally coming back to the US, I've settled in Boulder, Colorado, because now everybody is just scramming New York, LA, just going far afield. And what else am I going to say? I do a lot of yoga and I do a lot of rock climbing. This is what Boulder is known for. A lot of hippy dippy stuff, my Buddhist studies, so.
Oh, I miss Colorado. I went to grad school in Denver. I miss Colorado.
Oh,
so awesome.
It's just so different. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, amazing.
So much space.
Sunil, do you want to talk?
Sure, I'll talk. Hey, everybody. My name is Sunil Malhotra. I am an actor. I'm an audiobook narrator. I work in all different areas. I do a lot of other kinds of voiceover and animation and video games. I work on camera when they let me. And I am a dad and a husband. I've got 2 kids at home, and that's interesting in these very interesting times. I have a small toddler and a second grader, and so there's a lot of reading, to them as well.
Professional
and then really professional.
Yeah.
So everyone's really excited to be at home and be with their kids and be able to work at the same time, pandemic wise.
But I would say excited to be at home with the kids all the time is maybe not the way I would put it.
Maybe me neither. I love them, but.
And, I love them, of course, but like it's
The disclaimer.
but I mean it's a lot. I
It's been a
mean
minute. It's been a minute. Yeah.
it's been a very long minute.
No judgment. Judgment-free zone. Judgment-free zone. JD.
Yeah, JD Jackson, been narrating for I think about 20 years now. Yeah. I'm doing the dad thing, but I have like big ass kids. 17 going on 18, 15 going on crazy, 13, 3 boys, and I just got a new dog for some reason. I don't know why I would do that at this point.
You're not busy enough.
Yeah, he is just as crazy as the others. So yeah, it's been hectic, and as you can hear, I'm battling things. So my son was sick, and so he, of course, passed it on to me. That's part of parenthood. Whatever they get, you get. Just excited about having this conversation. It's an important one. I'm honored to be on this panel with all of you guys, and let's unpack some stuff. Right?
Yes.
Awesome. That's amazing to be with you guys.
Yeah. So again, I'm just gonna sort of we all hope for this to be really free form, but Sunil and I had this conversation, as Dan mentioned, a couple months ago, and the response was really moving. I don't know if as many people reached out to you, Sunil, as they did to me. I'm sure they did, but it was really evident that it's a conversation that our community is hungering for. And so I guess just to start off, and then we can just go where we go. But one of the things that I asked Kelly for a phone call as we were prepping this to talk a little bit about focus, because I think in these conversations, and I'd be really interested to hear all of your thoughts about this. Often what happens when I'm asked to do these conversations, and this is true of all the communities I'm in, it's true in higher education, it's true in theater, it's true in audio, publishing. We start to have these conversations about diversity, and then they end up being conversations about white behavior, white people's behavior in certain spaces and how it affects us. And I'll use a specific example that one of the things we talked about in the November conversation was a white narrator who had asked, how do I handle respectfully voicing people of other cultures? And that became a big conversation. And afterwards, I sort of realized that that's still a white focused topic, even though it touches us and our communities, it still kind of is, it's about the white gaze and white need. And so one of the things I'm trying to be mindful of in this conversation is to really be speaking from my own experience and also to folks who don't have access to a lot of conversation about this necessarily. So that's what I'll say, just kind of as an opener, and I'm really curious to hear your reflections on that.
That's super true. That's so interesting that you say that about, like, we're still answering their needs, how to give them an answer as to how should they behave in this circumstance. It does affect us because then, if a white actor is playing a role that is actually more written for a person of color, them saying, I can't do this, I'm not comfortable, there's somebody else better suited for it, it will affect us. It frees up the job so that the people who should be doing that role or feel very comfortable to do that are doing it. So I had mentioned to you guys earlier on an email that there are a couple things that you guys said on this Ahab Breakdown last session that just blew my mind. And it was your answer, actually, January, to this question that you read off the text. And I don't know if you want to say it, or should I say it? You should.
I'd love to hear you reflect on it. I'd love to.
You know what I'm talking about, though.
Yeah, I do.
You know what you said. It's just, you kind of nailed it. Nailed on the head so perfectly, and I'd never thought of it this way. So the question was being, if I, as an actor, don't feel comfortable doing voices from somebody from a different ethnicity, or I'm given a book that I am not really well cast for, and I'm a white actor. What do I do? Do I keep that book or not? And I'm not comfortable. Well, first, I guess the fact that you're not comfortable makes it such that, you know, that's a red flag. You know, if you felt, oh, it's fine, I can do this. This isn't too much of a big part in the story. That's one thing. But then what you said was, you know, if you're going to do that part, these are people, the characters are people. Our job as actors is to embody a person. They're not an Asian girl. They're not a Black guy. They are a person first and foremost. And if you embody that person, you're going to be good. In terms of accents, base that on a real person you know. And I was like, oh, wow, you know, yeah, that's absolutely right. That's what I would do. You think of, so you base it on a person you know, because that person exists. They speak like this. Sometimes they speak with a thick, heavy accent. You don't want to just say, oh, any Asian accent is offensive, so I can't do it. You know, it's real. You do it. That's how my mother, or that's how my mother's not that strong. That's how my dad sounds or something, you know, and that's true and authentic. Now, if you're going to do it in a way that's just caricatured out, this is no good. But if you know a person and they speak this way, you kind of base it on them. Then the next step is, if you don't know a person from that culture at all, then you should not be playing that part at all. Like, you don't know anybody, then you don't understand where they're coming from, or maybe their culture. It's not just like you can go on YouTube and be, you know, let's just copy Hank Azaria or, you know, Master of None. I don't know. So
Yeah.
that was great. If you don't know anyone at all in your community from that ethnicity, then yeah, you probably don't get it. If it's that character that character is a big enough part of the book, you know, it may not be the protagonist you're playing. So yeah, and go out and get friends that
Yeah,
are different
I think I
ethnicities,
said
not
something
just
like change your life.
change
Go
your
out and
life.
get friends.
If you
Maybe
don't know
meet some
anyone
people
outside your own affinity group, change your life.
outside your circle. Maybe you could try,
That's
not
right.
just to get the job, but for reals,
For real
you
life,
know,
it would be helpful.
for reals.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, that was a great answer.
You know, it's interesting. I'm thinking a lot about what you're saying, January, in setting up the conversation, and how, you know, so much of this conversation does become about white behavior. And even in hearing you say that just now, it's like I find myself both saying like, yeah, I just want to talk about like in community, right? Like what you're saying. And then I'm also like, you know, the flip side of that is I feel like, you know, we exist, like part of this conversation is also, we have our friends at PRH who are awesome enough to actually be creating this space for us to have this conversation, not just to have this conversation, but for the folks at PRH to learn from this conversation, right? And so, and you know, a lot of those folks are white, so
Right.
right, and
Yeah.
the power structures that, you know, we live in every industry, and certainly in this industry, is white. And you know, it's funny, I was thinking about this morning in terms of something else, but it always comes back to this, you know, to what we're talking about here, in that, you know, we can talk about, meaning writ large as a society, like race, when it comes to any other person of color and their race, right? But the conversation when we talk about race in terms of whiteness is so, it's, you know, people either, you know, take umbrage at it, or, you know, they don't know, like this, like there's an offense taken, or it becomes like we have to walk on eggshells talking about it. And, you know, I think as much as we spend some time today talking about in community and the love that we need to give to our own community, and the strength to give our own community to do the things that, you know, I think all of us have learned in our time in this profession, I think we also, you know, should focus a little bit on, like, you know, our friends and colleagues who are genuinely curious in how they can help in this endeavor, right?
No,
Like,
I agree 100% with the focus. I mean, because like you said, most of the time these conversations are based on a perspective, and people of color are asked to panel up and discuss their experiences, but we already experienced these experiences. So it's more of a cathartic experience, because, and for those who observe, it also assuages guilt to some degree, because they're allowed, people are allowed to say, hey, I did this. Here's my evidence of diversity and being sensitive to this community and that community. So we had a forum and we had a panel, but the true measure is to have a panel afterwards and find out what those people who observed thought and how that changed their perspective. Because like you said, ultimately the people who are in positions of power or gatekeepers or people who make decisions, they have to go through the catharsis in order to, enact real change. So that's why the focus being towards people who you can pass information on to, I think is a very, very appropriate focus to have when we're all getting together to have these, Black, Indigenous people and Indigenous people of color. All these
Is BIPOC.
yeah, I'm like getting lost in the lettering sometimes. Yeah, but yeah, so I kudos for centering this in that perspective so that we can speak to people from our communities who may need to figure out how to navigate this situation, and also in part some perspective for others who are truly motivated to enact change. So yeah.
Almarie, did you want to say something?
Sure, yeah. One of the things I like to remember as far as focus too is to focus on the things we can celebrate that have been happening and that we are contributing to on a day-to-day basis with so much work and energy that we're, shoveling into this. The fact that we're here talking as people of color, the fact that we, have this platform thanks to PRH, the fact that PRH is interested in this and was like, yeah, let's have you guys come over here. Like that's something to be celebrated because there's so much work to be done and so much to be said. But the fact that people are now listening, now willing to talk without, the walking on eggshells as much, it's still there. We grew up with it. We're, we're still in an industry where we're underrepresented. So we're still like, what can I say that won't step over the line,
Especially when it touches our pocketbooks and our bank.
And I've been, but at the same time, I was, I remember chairs being thrown on Phil Donahue, so there's always been an appetite for the conversation. And I think, for us, it's about like, now what? Like, I think we're in that position now where people are no longer wanting to talk, but they want to see action. And that's especially right now in the world, people are, they're done talking. They're they want to see some change, and so I think that's why now it is good. I mean, I think this is a good forum to and a good focus to have those kind of conversations so that we can start enacting real change. That's not going to be just when we talk about diversity, which is, I love that. I mean, we'll get to that. Whatever, surprise a little bit later. But I love that because that always is something that I always, it just always rubbed me the wrong way as far as society mirroring itself when it comes to diversity and saying, oh, this is diversity when the majority looks like me. That's diversity as opposed to what is real diversity. So yeah, I'm just going.
Wait, can you explain that a little bit more? What you just said? That's so interesting. I got a little lost.
I don't want to steal too much from what Sunil was actually going to present, though. No, as far as like if there's 20 people in the room and okay, I used this analogy before. If there's an award show and there's 5 people who are nominated for Best Female Narrator, is diversity including one great female narrator, even though there were 5 amazing African-American female narrators that year? Do we say that's diversity because we have one included that year? Or is it diversity when the best narrators that specific year happened to be African-American women, and they were all nominated because they were truly the top 5 performances. And then the next year, if it's an Asian American, if it's all Asian American, you know, diversity means we truly look at the palette and say, okay, everyone's here, everyone's included, everyone's to be measured equally. Now, how do we make the decisions based? And I know that's, you know, that's further down the road, but I mean,
Yeah.
but when we talk about diversity, usually it's just that. I'm comfortable with diversity if you are not the majority in this situation.
I
I'm
feel like
comfortable, if I'm the majority. Yeah.
you're talking about
Mhm.
kind of the subtle
Mhm.
difference between diversity and tokenism,
Mm.
which I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
think that
yeah,
people necessarily identify all the time, but it's like as long as we see some representation,
Mhm.
we have representation.
Right.
And
Right.
those two things are
Not
not
true.
equivalent at all.
And how that is so different also just from it actually being included in being part of the conversation or part of the power structure or part of the change that can actually happen, right? So it's like, who are the people that are judging those best
Right.
performances, right? Are they also just coming at it from like a very white perspective and a white gaze, right?
Oh, no, that's
I think that-
so key. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that it has a lot to do then going back to the issue of who's producing work, who gets to make movies, who gets to make TV shows, who gets to author books, whose books are chosen to be brought forth and promoted. I mean, Audible promotes books. Every single publishing house picks the books they want to promote. So even if there's a good, great, you know, Japanese author who's written something incredible, you know, do you lead the pack or do they lead you? Do you feed, well, this is a mostly white American demographic readers and, you know, it's not going to sell. They're not that interested in this Asian story, which is what I encounter a lot, I think. You know, there are more and more. And, you know, to Almarie's point, I think that there's a burgeoning interest with some people in the arts to put forward these voices, to produce more, and more gumption for us to step in and be like, I'm good enough to write this movie. You know, I'm going to push for this book to be published because it needs to be heard, even though, you know, not the majority dominant culture is going to be interested in my little Asian story. Maybe they will. They need to be given that opportunity to understand, oh, what's it like to grow up like that? You know, there's a lot of people that do happen upon my books, and in the reviews, they're just like, I have never heard a story like this, and it's amazing to learn about the Chinese Exclusion Act and Chinatown and, you know, 18 something. I would have never have known. And that's like, do we pull that forth to give to them? And I think we do. I mean, we have to. That's the gatekeeper's role. That's the game changing, you know, action. So first, it's in like, how can we create more work and encourage publishers to make those audiobooks for this work, promote those stories when they're good, because there's inevitably excellent material that just is not in the white gaze yet.
And the
And so
white,
from
yeah, and the white gaze, when you say that, it's just what you were saying about different experiences. Like, it's whiteness is not a culture, you know, so there's so many different experiences that they haven't experienced, but yet embraced, you know, books from whether this person is from Chicago, Midwestern Chicago, or Appalachia, you know, so the potential to embrace what's different is innate. It's just a choice that has to be
absolutely
challenged. And because, you know, no culture is, you know, no race of people is monolithic. So, you know, it's, yeah.
People want it too. I think I look at Netflix, you see how many Korean dramas are on there. People aren't like, oh, I'm not going to watch that. There's like this, okay, I was just watching this new show, my new binge called Warrior on HBO Max. Has anybody heard of that show?
Yes.
Oh,
I
yeah,
just started,
JD.
yeah.
I just started it too.
Yeah. Warrior,
it's called
yeah.
Warrior.
Oh yeah,
Bruce
yeah,
Lee.
yeah, yeah.
Bruce Lee, yeah.
Bruce
Oh,
Lee.
this is that one. Yes, I have read about it. Yep.
And it was made by Cinemax, and finally it's like, oh, the most underrated action show that there is. And it's an all Chinese, well, it's half Chinese cast and half white cast because it takes place in Chinatown, San Francisco in the late 80s, 18 something, when you were dealing with the opium trade, human trafficking. And so this cast is beautiful. I'm like, where have these actors been? And I actually know one of the guys on the show. I'm like, this Asian cast is amazing. It's a fully like centered on the Chinese American immigrant experience and our history of this, of the diaspora and into Chinatown. And this one law that they decided to write against Chinese, a specific race is banned from coming into this country for 50 years. So anyway, that's even there on, HBO Max, or on Netflix. There's one called Badlands, where, that's just
Yes, I
people.
love Badlands.
You
Yeah.
like Badlands too?
Yeah.
I mean, this is what I look to watch. This is what I look to watch. But see, people are not like, oh, I'm not going to watch that. The white audiences are not like, I'm not watching Avatar, The Last Airbender. That's all Asians. They want it if we present it.
And when we talk about gatekeeping, what we're really saying is that there are people who get to decide what people are allowed to choose from.
Yes.
Right? And that's part of the sort of top-down issue of the power structure, which is that if everybody on the top is the gatekeeper deciding what gets through, before people can even get to that place of like, I prefer vanilla, I prefer chocolate, I prefer strawberry,
Right.
then that's where the bottleneck, I think, happens, and it can be really frustrating. I do want to go back to Almarie's comment about celebration, and I would love if everybody wants to share, bringing it back to audiobooks, because that's like, I guess, why we're here, although I could just talk to y'all forever about anything. I would love to hear one celebration of this industry that you feel or have seen change in your time working in it, from everybody, if you have one.
I can start. Besides what I mentioned, is more opportunities for discussion of what we need to work on, so that the focus can be on our fellow people of color who are just trying to either get in the industry, who have no idea they can't even get into the industry, to give them the support and environment they need to come on in. Besides that, I think as a Latina, as a Latinx, somebody who represents the Latinx community in audiobooks, hearing from more authors that are daring to write books that are pretty much how we speak, bilingual. Like a lot of Latinos who live in the US. I was born in Puerto Rico, but then I came to the US, then I went back to Puerto Rico for college, then I came back here. So I'm a bilingual person who speaks Spanglish a lot, and I see that now in books. And now I get to narrate that in audiobooks, which means somebody out there is going to hear themselves. Again, the representation is so important. Somebody out there who's listening to an audiobook is going to go, that's how I talk.
Yeah.
That's how I speak.
Daniel,
Mommy always talks to me in Spanish, but then I respond in English, and then she gets mad. But these things are now present.
Yeah.
Now, we still have a lot of work to do in who we're casting to represent that. Are we being careful? Are we inviting talent that didn't know that this career was accessible to them? Are we even presenting these audiobooks that sound so cool to the people who need to hear them? Or can they not afford the Audible membership? We need to work on a lot of these things, but in general, much progress has been done and started. And so now it's time for us to keep the ball rolling.
That's awesome. Yeah, Daniel Jose Older, I don't know if you all know him, the amazing YA author, and he does this great explainer video on why you should never italicize foreign languages or non-English languages in English language books. And I advise everybody to just go look it up on Twitter or online, because it's exactly what you're talking about. It's like, I don't switch, and he switches in the video to like all these different characters. It's like, I'm not switching to be a different person. This is the way I talk. Yeah. I love that. Anybody else? A celebration, a happy thing?
Just being able to do, I just recently did Beowulf, and to do a classic like that, and I've been doing this for years, so it's rare that I'm able to do a classic work like that. And I know it had something to do with the new translation, but I felt like that's what needs to happen more. That true non-traditional casting, and I didn't have to audition for it. It was just, hey, here it is. So I was like, now this is that was something that really excited me, because I felt I was not in any way being typecast, or someone just didn't have an imagination to understand that I do have a classical training background, and that I might be able to handle the language. And someone just knew that and put those two things together and said, go. So, you know, I was, you know, very honored to do that. And not just because it was classic, but because of those things in the background and, you know, someone just believing I could do it, you know, not, you know, expecting, you know, not having me audition to prove I could do it. They just knew. So, yeah.
That's real
Amazing.
advocacy. That's real advocacy in the institution, right? Like from above, what people can do when they see us as individuals with individual skill sets and individual gifts, and they choose us, they put us forward for those jobs.
Right.
That's advocacy. That is the work, right? And not making you jump through, not saying, oh, I'll have him do it, but he's just got to do the audit. You know, it's like, that's the real deal. That's how things change. Yeah.
And actually, you know, I was going to say that's both, for me, that's been it's a celebration. That is the celebration that we're having this conversation and these stories are happening, like for all of us, you know. And then also, like, I do think that, like, you know, this is what we want to kind of encourage more, right? Like the thing that I want to, like the fact that there is so much reception for wanting to understand how to grow as an industry, right? And so, like, when I hear the story about, like, you know, JD like doing this, like, this is, and the key thing is, it is without the audition, but it's not like without knowing you, right? That's the key. And the thing is, it's, you know, this is a conversation that, you know, we've had as a group, like, you know, or as a smaller groups or as individuals with people in power, where it's like, you know, I think that's the thing. It's learning about all of us as actors, right? And you know, like for me, the reason I got into voiceover, I started out like in stage and then on camera, and then I got into voiceover about like 9 years into my acting career. And so I got into it because it was like, I want to be able to break beyond just, you know, the things that are limiting to me, and certainly
how I look,
right? Like I didn't even fit. I did not even fit Hollywood perceptions of what it is to be South Asian or Indian, right? So I didn't even fit that. So it was the idea. It was that level of struggle was like, I mean, like, man, I really want to, like, the reason I want to tell a story, right? Like, not, and I didn't know that, I could literally tell a story reading a book, but, you know, it was that leap into voiceover. This was the first voiceover I did before getting into any other aspect of that business. So it was audiobooks. That was sort of my entree into that whole world. And actually it was PRH. That was my entree into all that. Was like, that's another little, but yeah, I mean, so I've always felt that audio has had that great promise and has fulfilled that promise to a point, right? And so now, and it's certainly gotten more, like, better and better over the years, more so than, you know, I see in the on-camera world. And part of that is the nature of the work, and part of that is the nature of the people in the business that are willing to do that, right? And their reach in the business, right? We're not having this conversation with a small company, right? We're having this conversation under the umbrella of one of the biggest companies in the world. Right. So, you know, we have their ear. And so it's saying, like, yeah, getting to know your actors, right? And saying, like, hey, you know what? I know what JD can do, right? I know that, you know, I know what January and Nancy and Almarie can do, right? I know these things. So I'm going to push beyond, like, even if it's, I just saw something come in, like, in an email from audio file, and it was like this fantasy book, and it was a lady narrator for this boy, like, it was all men and boys, and I was like, oh, wow, that's like, and I was like, is there like a female character? Is that why they cast her? No. And I listened to it and I was like, oh, this is like so cool, right? Like, and so all of that is a decision. somebody
Yes.
made that decision. There are things that we can advocate for. Like one of the things that I feel
Yeah.
like I've felt both empowered to do over the course of my career, but also have that reception has grown more and more in the industry, which is another thing to celebrate, is like, you know, we talk about the white gaze. I also talked about the white listening gaze, whatever that would be called, because I don't have a brain in pandemic times. But like, you know, so it's like, how do you pronounce certain words? Because, you know, it's so funny. I've learned how to pronounce so many words correctly doing audiobooks that I just been mispronouncing, I guess, my whole life. But then there's some words where I'm like, oh no, that's how you say it. So for instance, Himalayas, right? It's not the Himalayas, it's the Himalayas.
Wow.
Wait, what?
Right? Yeah.
Wait,
So I mean, we learn everything every day, right?
I didn't know that.
No. And so it's like, so because I feel like as an audiobook narrator,
Yeah.
I'm doing two things. I'm speaking in two ways, maybe. Like I'm telling the story, right? And if there is a certain community in that story that maybe doesn't get seen a lot, I'm really trying to be authentic for them,
Represent
right?
them.
Even if that's not my community, right?
Yes.
I'm trying to be authentic as to the best of my abilities to that community, right? I'm also speaking to the people not in that community.
That's right.
Because I'm educating them
Yes.
by not just I'm emotionally educating them by giving these characters and this story like groundedness and life and just everything. And then I'm also just telling them like, this is how you say stuff.
This is so important to me. I'm just going to tag on to that. This comes up for me in most of my books, and I've had long discussions about it. You know, how do you pronounce this word that has forever been pronounced the wrong way?
Mm-hmm.
Do you say my name right? You know, or do you continue to say it the way that it has always been said? And you have to like step up. You know, you can just capitulate and be like, oh, you can call me whatever. Oh, you can't say my name. No, we got to teach you how to say my name so you can read this Chinese on here and say it's, you know, it's Chang, it's not Chang, you know. Although there's always this kind of, with Chinese specifically, it's the language that I have, you know, you have to walk a fine line, you know, because something like Shanghai, you know, it's actually Shanghai. How much is it for me to make that switch and tell you in this book, the entire book, I'm going to say Shanghai? Does that upset you? Well, that's pretty easy because there's not a big leap. The same with like the Yangtze River. Can I say Yangtze? You know, so you have to negotiate that. But if there's a word that you've never heard before and it's spelled Zhang, I'm going to say Zhang, you know. This comes up a lot. And a lot of times people are like, oh, we'll just say it so that people are going to understand you. And I'm like, no, you got to teach them. And it happened, actually, I'll just tell one quick story about this. I did the Avatar, The Last Airbender, Rise of Kyoshi. It's a prequel series that was written in novel form, the first time they've written novels for that cult classic Nickelodeon cartoon, you know, which was 15 years back. I don't know, you guys all know this show? You know this? All right.
I was on Legend of Korra.
Okay, so here we go. So here we're going to start with this. So it was amazing. You know, I got into this world. I only knew the show a little bit. And when I delved into it, I was like, oh my gosh, here's this show that's an all Asian cast of cartoon characters based on China, based on Inuit culture, there was not a white character on it. And I was like, super psyched. Wow, this happened 15 years ago. I love this. It's like based on Buddhism, and then there's all the martial arts, and they're very authentic to it. It's two white guys that created the series, you know, but it was Nickelodeon 15 years back. And at the time, 85% of those voice actors are white. And I didn't know that, of course, until I looked into it. I was like, where's my homies, you know? What? And then Korra was similar. And then we can have a whole discussion about this. I got all into it because I narrated these two books. And then I thought, this is amazing. The guy who wrote the books is Chinese, Korean, he's Asian American, and they cast me. And I think that by this time, you know, most publishers are going to cast this, you know, set in Asian inspired countries with an Asian voice. But that happened, you know, through the book. We had to have a big conversation with my author. How are we going to say these words? Oh, well, of course, everything that's canon stays canon. Everything you pronounced before in a certain way stays. But anything new, hey, let's really say it this way. And then you got your feedback from the fans, which is crazy. They loved the books. They're very good books. And they basically were like, okay, this is how you say it. And there's a clip of me reading the book, and they've, you know, these fans are nuts, especially for a show like this. They are nuts. They've like edited together all sorts of scenes, and they have my reading of the book, and they say, these are the pronunciations of the names, you know, Lao Ge. And then they have my voice voicing that. And they have like, you know, it's just amazing. Like, we do get to teach, and that's our job. And I take it pretty seriously, because I do represent almost entirely, with most of the books that I get, Asian books from, you know, these cultures. And you have to. If we don't do it, who will? People, they want to know. Kids aren't being like, I don't want to say, but they read it in their head a different way, because you can anglicize names so quickly. So
And
that
what
went on a long time. But
I want to ask, it just, you're going to be shocked to know that we are well past the halfway point of this conversation. So I want to just ask everybody, because I think what Nancy's talking about, I term advocacy for ourselves and advocacy for our communities. And I would love to ask you all, if you were going to talk to, I was going to say an early career narrator, but we all struggle with this through our entire careers. So how would you talk to other narrators about advocacy in our jobs? What advice would you give, or an experience that you've had that you feel has succeeded, or maybe didn't succeed, and why?
So, for me, it's interesting, because as much as I want to talk to new actors or new audiobook narrators or aspiring audiobook narrators, I also want to talk to the people behind the scenes. I also want to talk to, you know, Penguin Random House, and like who's behind there, and who's the decision maker, the gatekeepers, etc. I think so. If I were directing my conversation to just the new audiobook narrators that are people of color, that are from underrepresented groups, I would say, hey, we're all in this together, right? Whether you're just starting out or you've been a veteran in this industry, we're all still struggling with some stuff, and we're all trying to teach each other and change some ways in here. So do not go, or I would say, don't go in there necessarily being like, yay, I got in, I better shut up and not voice any of my concerns, because we're all trying to voice our concerns. That's why we're here, right? Like, one of the things that we were just talking about is how to pronounce things. Oh my God. And from, you know, being a Latina, I want to pronounce everything like we pronounce it, because that's what that's why the author wrote it. So that, you know, but then who are we catering to? If we keep catering to the white ear only, then we're never going to achieve the diversity we want to achieve, because we keep whitewashing it, or we keep like, it's okay.
Then what's the point of having you read it if you're not going to even be able to say it the way it should be?
Bring any authenticity to it, or bring any kind of experience that will inform people on a different level.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you. I was just like, so.
I like what
I
like what you're talking about in terms of solidarity. Like, also to the point someone else made, like, we struggle because we are put in a box, you know, like all of us are pushing against a box. Most other people that are not in, you know, minority communities, or may not be with marginalized communities, they don't even know there's a box. We're what box, you know? So us pushing means that there's a need. There's not a place for us to go. We have to create that place to go. We have to do what GAD was saying. You work so hard, people know you so well. They're like, oh, let's put him in Beowulf. You know, more of us have to a new actor, a new narrator, get good, work on your craft. It's not just about getting in there and getting a job and, you know, like get more acting work. You know, do it because you care about it. And then you can represent, you can make the change. And then you can say, hey, I'd like to do some other classic books that are written by Western authors, or some Pulitzer Prize winning books that are not Asian authors. That is what JD you're saying. To me, that's the ultimate, like, wow, this is happening. You know, you're not prejudiced because you say Nancy Wu reading Joyce Carol Oates, or, you know, like you're not being.
And actually, you know, I'd like to, this just kind of came up. I'd like to propose something too. You know, this would be something that I would say to a new narrator, and something I would also advocate for to the folks at PRH and anybody else at an audio house. So, like, you know, we all, there are books that we get to do if we're lucky, that are sort of like, let's just call them the white books, right? Like where you don't need
Let's
to
call it
be,
that.
you don't need to be Black
Say it.
or Latinx or East Asian or South Asian or whatever. You don't have to be that to do the book, right? I've been very lucky. I get to do some of those books sometimes, right? Most of the books I get are either South Asian, I like to say Western Asian, otherwise known as Middle East, but like those parts of the world, right? Now, this goes along with what Almarie was just saying. So in order for me to do that book, that requires a skill that a lot of people don't have,
Right.
right? Certainly a lot of my fellow white narrators don't have, right? In fact, sometimes I don't even have it. I gotta go do my other stuff.
Yeah, for
I gotta go
sure.
bother my wife, all my friends, and be like, so how do you say this? How do you say this? Who is this? How is this?
But you got that
there was a
wife
book
and
I
you
did.
had those friends.
I'm not Ethiopian, but a book that I did had a lot of Ethiopian characters. I went down to little Ethiopia.
Right.
I made a lot of friends. Right? So like that stuff that I think deserves to be paid more for.
I agree. Pay us.
Right?
Pay us
So
for what we bring.
no, because I think this is, and I don't, it's so funny because it's like, I hate talking about, when we're put in this, we do this industry, we're in this industry because we love it, right? We love this. And that love is what gets us through with a frankly very economically difficult industry to survive in, right? And so we're just lucky to be in the room, right? And that message is also reinforced in many times subtle and sometimes not so subtle ways, right? And so it becomes difficult to advocate for yourself in a financial sense, right? But I think this is something I would say to a young actor: first, get good, right? That's always there. You're never, you're never going to stop that journey of getting good ever. But then also know your worth, man. Know your worth. Know who you are and what you are bringing. You are being the one that's asked to do this thing ultimately. You may have auditioned for it. You may have been asked and invited. Either way, you're there. You're in front of the mic. You're bringing something special. And so, which isn't to say that like, if I'm doing a quote unquote white book that, you shouldn't be getting paid too. I'm saying, if there, the work that I have to put in to, I'll tell you what, there was one book I did where I had to, I did a Salman Rushdie book. Okay. Just the language alone. And then you finding the pronunciations and all this. I don't have to do that for, like Eleanor and Park, which was, I love that book.
Tom Clancy.
I don't have to do that for a time, so it's like, there's just, those challenges should be recognized by the industry. I think we all as we as sort of veterans of the industry, can I say that? But like people who have been in it for a longer time should sort of advocate ourselves and encourage our younger peers to also advocate for it, because I think that also encourages, in our business, it's money isn't respect, but when people are paying you something, they're recognizing your worth.
Yeah, I just want to jump in on what Sunil
Sorry, I
was
talked too
saying.
much.
No, exactly. There's a few things that I wanted to comment on. I mean, one is knowing your worth is so important. And a part of that is living in fear, and because we, especially coming from film, television, where every no is, you get 5 no's a day, and you start to become afraid. I remember when I first got into the business, I would walk into, casting directors' offices with whatever I decided to put on that day. However I was feeling, that's what I walked in with, and this is the script, let's do it. And then I would get all these callbacks and, oh yeah, you're doing great, you're great. But then kids start coming, pressure start coming, fears start coming. Then it was like, I got to dress like this. I got to button this up. I can't wear this. I have to be all these things instead of just be. And because I was living in fear. And then when you get into that place and settle into it, then all of a sudden you don't know your worth because you're afraid, if I ask for a little bit more, am I not going to work anymore? And so that allows people to take advantage of you and say, oh, yeah, you're worth this. Yeah, because we say so. So once you know your worth, don't let anybody undercut you. And I'm speaking from years of not knowing my worth and allowing that to, dictate what I was paid based on fear of losing something. So you definitely that. And then the idea of acculturation, which is, us being able to switch and do books that are mainstream. And I want to, I guess I want to get away from saying white books or because those two things seem to interchange a lot. And that's what we got to do something about. Because,
you're right. You're right.
Because I like to say I'm perfectly fine if I do quality books from an African American perspective, and that's all I do. I'm good. But if I'm allowed, see that word allowed. If I'm allowed to do other works from other cultures, I embrace that as well. But I don't look at it as a step up or a privilege to do those works. I just want to do quality work, and there's a plenty of quality work from all perspectives. As it's like Nancy was saying, Marco Polo. I was like, how could you cancel Marco Polo as one of the best shows on television? Are you kidding me? I love The Last Kingdom, but if Marco Polo, so it's understanding that, and August Wilson, I quote, the ground on which I stand. He had that book and just talking about, look, I'm fine right here, and this is where I'll stand, and elevate that ground. And and then once we're all allowed to, everyone's respecting everyone else's perspective, then it gets to that place where it doesn't matter who's doing what. But as far as not living in fear,
so true. That's so
getting connected to someone who actually knows the business, whatever you can, you can read from that person, or whatever you can, knowledge you can gain from someone who's in the business, do that as well. And don't be afraid, don't be afraid to know your worth. And, and don't be afraid to, when you find a book that doesn't shed a positive light on you, don't be afraid to say, no, I'm not going to do it, because trust, when you put that out, it'll come back. You put that out that this is what you stand for, this is who you are, then what you are and what you stand for, it'll show up for you. So don't be afraid to say no. I actually had to walk out on a book because the perspective was so, I was reading it and I said, okay, I'll do it. I need the money. I got to do this book. But then as I started reading it aloud, I was like,
happened for me too.
I can't do this.
There's
no way I can do this book. And the engineer, he looked at me, he was like, I was hoping you'd say that. And I was like, oh, thank God. He was like, oh, I did not want to listen to this. So don't be afraid to just stand your ground and advocate for yourself.
I just wanna, we've been talking a lot about talking up. I think talking around, talking to our community, but also talking to the power structure, and about knowing your worth. I want to tell a little story that's been sitting real heavy on me during these COVID times. I had a situation in the fall when the virus was really bad here. It's really bad here again, where I have been working since the pandemic. I don't have a home studio, so I've been working in the same studio with the same engineer. We have our protocols, we have our PPE. I feel really safe there. I don't feel compromised. I had a producer offer me a book that they really wanted me to do. They then, when my agent informed them that I'm only working in this studio because it's the only place that I feel safe and comfortable working, the producer came back and said, okay, she can be in that studio, but we're going to need to reduce her rate by $15 per finished hour. Ooh, This was a 10-hour book. And so what I now know is that my health and safety, and now here's where this all gets really intersectional, right? I am a Black woman. I am a prominent Black woman in this industry. There's nobody who's hiring January LaVoy who doesn't know she's a Black woman. As we've learned countless times over the last year, our complicated and broken healthcare system does not treat all people equally. I have concerns beyond just preserving my voice, my breath, my body, all of this COVID stuff, and why I don't want to get this disease, but also that even if I do get this disease, I may not be treated. I may not have the situation, the care in the hospital the same way that other people do, right? This is what I'm thinking. And this is a publisher who, the top person there has come to me in the past and asked for my advocacy and my advice in terms of issues on diversity. I now know that all that is not worth $150 to this publisher. $15 per finished hour for 10 hours if we're going to talk about our worth.
Wow. Right.
Shit.
I have hard feelings about this situation. I really do. And I haven't even decided yet how I'm going to handle my relationship with this publisher in the future. But I can tell you, I know what I'm worth. And it's more than $150 for my bodily health and safety in a global pandemic.
Right.
And that's how I think. That's how I think about my worth. I'm not thinking about, I'm not just, I'm thinking about my bills and everything else, but I'm not just thinking about that. I'm not just thinking about my rate.
It's the principle of it.
My body, my community, my advocacy, my—
Damn right.
Well, and you gotta ask, if that were a white male narrator who was at the level that you are at, would they even dare
Would
to
they
say,
even
I'm gonna take
ask?
a little money
This
from
is what
you?
I
No, they would probably not even blink twice.
I'm gonna say his name because I know he won't be mad at me, but like, they're not gonna say that to Scott Brick.
No, exactly.
I'm good friends with Scott, and he'd be the first person to say, they're not gonna say that to me. We've had
people that have always historically been on the back foot. Others that kind of have power, just see them that way. Oh, I can push back here. Oh, this community is not gonna be afraid. We can give less healthcare here because they're not gonna speak up.
Right.
You
All
know,
that.
and that is tough. You walk that. We walk that every day. Where you're feeling.
I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry I have to jump in on this because, like, I literally this week just said enough with a rate that I felt was so insulting, but it was a part of the past. And I've recently moved and went through some mindset changes, and during that time, that fear mindset allowed me to continue to and what you're saying, it's when you say your worth, it's not a number per se, as much as it is someone respecting your work, respecting your experience, respecting your skill set, respecting what you bring to the table. And when you do the math, that's literally what I did. Like, are you saying the average book, 10 hours, are you saying what I bring to the table is not worth $300? Really?
Yeah.
Because that's what we're talking about.
Right.
And then the it goes around in circles as to why they we can't do it. And then you get to I had someone actually say, well, it's too steep. And I'm like, is that a reason? Did you explain exactly why? I mean, I can go to I can take my son to the shoe store, and $200 pair of sneakers is not too steep for him, but I might say, it's too steep for me. I have more money than he does, but he values those sneakers, so he's gonna get them and he's gonna enjoy wearing them. So if you're saying it's just because it's too steep, then you're saying it's not that I'm too expensive for you, you're too cheap for me, and and that's fine. If we don't work anymore, I hate to end the relationship, but I cannot. It's it's just like a relationship.
I have an email sitting in my inbox with that exact thing right now, where it's like, it's a publisher I've worked with many, many times, and it's just like, and every time I always ask, this is always something I always advise too. You should always ask.
Right.
You should always ask for more, right?
Yeah.
And then but like, I mean, it's just like, no, this is like, no. Why still?
Yeah, something I want to say to the people to the narrators who have been in this industry that are listening to us speak right now, they can all relate because we all have these stories. And January, yours, like, it hit me too, because it's like it's it goes to show, it's an example of, okay, we're audiobook narrators, but we're also coming from underrepresented groups, which means there's many layers, right,
Mhm.
that we have to overcome to get to here. And this all relates to here. There's so many, it's so it's so complex, right? To hire a narrator that comes from an underrepresented community, especially if you're going to hire them to represent a book that, you know, also represents that community. There's a lot of layers that you just went through. So just know, like, we have to know that we are,
We bring it.
like you're saying, this is what we're bringing to the table. It's a lot.
Mhm.
It's a
It's a
lot
lot.
that we usually don't unpack, but it's all under there, you know? And so speaking to a new narrator, I would say, know that we're going through these struggles too. Know that look, January has no idea how to right now talk to this publisher or bring it up or whatever. I'm sure you'll figure out a graceful way to do it. And we have to support each other. Don't, you know, if you feel like it's not right to accept a rate because you're like, this is way too low, or it doesn't have to be rate related. For me,
Right. That's
Right.
right.
you know what it comes down to a lot for me? It's so much work that I have to do.
Oh,
Sunil's point, if I got this book
so
that was
much.
narrated in standard American accent and all the characters are this are, you
Nothing.
know, that I don't have to do anything. I can
Yeah.
almost not
Mhm.
prep the book and show up at the studio. But if I
Mhm.
get the Latino books, which is all I get, and I love it, I will live in that area forever. That's what
Yes.
I want to
Me
do. I
too.
want to narrate them
Yeah.
all day long because that's
Yes.
To what
me.
JD said.
But I have
Yeah.
to do so much
It's much
research.
work.
I have
It's-
to ask, if I have a character from Uruguay, I'm from Puerto Rico, so I have to say, well, how would they pronounce it? Because I want to
Yes.
represent them.
That's
How,
right.
Yeah.
how would the Bronx, you know, New Yorkers pronounce it? Because I want to represent them. You
Yeah.
know, there's so much work that we do because we're
So
so
much.
committed to our communities and
We
represent
are.
them correctly that stuff isn't even looked at. In fact, it's rushed. Or
Yes.
there's no editor that'll catch you if you make a mistake, so you sound stupid.
Well,
Or
that's why
there's
we
no,
all
you know, there's
And
so
and
many
and
layers.
oh, yeah, and I was gonna say, you know, this isn't about elevating. This isn't about saying that the standard American whatever stuff is on an elevated platform. It's saying we need to be like this work and what we do. We can do that other stuff, and we should be able to do that other stuff.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
point
Right.
one. And point
Culturation.
two
Yeah.
is like what we are bringing to the books
Mhm.
that are being done for like in community, that needs to be elevated way up in terms of in terms of like in dollars and cents, really. I mean, like, honestly, because that's, I mean, you know, that, God, I hate saying it like that, but that is what it is, right? That is it's a business, right?
but
Like,
that's why
just
we
like you pay more for a celebrity because you want that
Yeah.
celebrity
That's right.
name, right?
To
You
bring
pay
it.
more, like you pay more to get authenticity. That is what we bring, right? But so it's a simultaneous thing of being able to say, hey, listen, you know what? I can do Western classics. I can do hard-boiled detective fiction, or whatever. I can do the YA books that are well, YA is everything. Most of my YA is actually all over the place. I don't even want to say YA, but like I can do sort of what, you know, mainstream or you know, standard American books, right? But like I can also do the stuff that's just me, right? That's just, you know, like what you're looking for an authenticity for, right? And that takes a lot of work, and that requires more.
This is a big point. It is so true. Both what both of you said, I guess I'm going to reiterate it in my words, what Almarie said and what Sunil said. We bring so much more that people don't even see because we care. Like,
Yeah.
we're getting books finally that represent us, the Chinese history books that talk about, you know, the Cultural Revolution, you know, the story of it. We are so much more committed. And I would say that is something that actually producers and casting directors may or may not know that they're getting. They should know. And is it undervalued? I don't know, but I spent a hell of a lot of time doing research. I tell you what, I have just been thrown like 4 nonfiction books, 600 pages on the Cultural Revolution, 600 pages on the Great Famine. You know, we're talking about like gulag, you know, labor camps. And I'm looking up all that stuff because I care and I want to know. And so that is what you bring. And so that's to the point of what we're worth. You're right. I mean, I'm not good in this area. I suffer from that, oh, lose a job, I can't ask for $15 more. But like, we're solving their problems a lot.
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot. They're looking for these people who can do this, who has a background that, you know, has lived abroad. I lived in Asia. I've lived in all sorts of different countries there. I can bring that without you even worrying about it. So that's actually to know your worth. Wow. Okay. Give it to Nancy. She's going to be doing all this work. She'll look up what's appropriate, what's authentic, you know, how to pronounce this. And she'll bring a body of knowledge from Asian, you know, understanding of Asian history, or, you know, whatever it is, the cultural background. My mother's from Indonesia. And that's just something that, like, you're right. We're bringing something special.
And it
So
doesn't
to remember that.
it doesn't come to us for free. Like, that's the
No.
thing, right? It's like
A lot of time.
living in those places, owning the books we own,
Mm.
cultivating the relationships we cultivate, getting the advanced degrees or not, whatever, the way we live our lives is part of who we are, right?
Yeah.
And I think for me, like, that was part of what was so disconcerting about this experience, was because this is, as I said, a publisher who has expressed that they are down for the struggle, right?
And
They really want to have an impact. And it's like, okay, let's just get into it. So I had an eating disorder for a really long time.
let's get into it.
I was like, a really long time I had this eating disorder, and I saw lots of different therapists.
By the end of this podcast, we're getting names.
Afterwards,
We're gonna get going deep, people.
but I finally saw this therapist for it, and she said to me, look, you have a disease, but you also have a habit. And if you only treat the disease and not the habit, you're never going to get better. And if you only change your habit, but don't treat the disease, you're not going to get better. And this is how I think about like systemic racism in our business. Like, there's the disease, right, which is the institutional systemic racism, but the habit is in the people, right? And so even if this publisher is doing, you know, initiatives and scholarships and councils and what have you, if on an individual level, people are not interacting with me as an individual person from an underrepresented background and thinking of all of me, not just how I say words into a microphone, this is why it is the work of our lives. This is the work of our lives. We have to do it every day. We have to change our habits. We have to see more clearly, right? And that's how it changes. It doesn't change by, it doesn't change just by making sure we have 15% more Black books and 8% more Asian books and 11%. That,
Right.
Sure, great, that's part of it. But individual responsibility inside the institutions, the choices, the conversations, it has to happen at the same time.
Yeah,
Off my soapbox.
Wow.
absolutely.
Thank you for
So right
sharing
on.
that with
And-
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it really is, who has the power to make change? Who has the power to educate? You know, we are leaders in this industry as well as the performers. The other half of it is authors, you know, producing, and then the other half of it is, you know, publishers, producers, who, you know, and we have our job to do, to push it, to represent, to be there, to be fully who we are and say what we're saying right now, you know, for people to think about and talk about. Then the producers have their bag. You know, what do they do? How do I represent? And I think there needs to be some stuff spoken there. They're probably listening to us to tell them, well, how am I going to handle this casting choice? Well, the author really wants a white person for this Asian book, so I'm sorry you didn't get it. You know, they you know, this is a famous person and they've got a beautiful voice. So how do they kind of make that change?
Yeah,
You
and
know, to get away with the habit.
Yeah, I will say this.
Educate the
Exactly.
author, you know?
Yeah,
Who are we
Yeah.
educating?
I believe that.
Educate different people.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
JD.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry. No, as far as the producer being able to make that hire, I feel that that's where the diversity comes in. You have a diverse production team, and that allows that person to, you know, if you have a Latinx person who is a producer there, then they can give that perspective firsthand and say, listen, I know someone, like, I'm not just going to say, Almarie, but there's someone else who has a different cultural experience than her, not just because she's, Latina, but this person grew up in a different area, in a rougher area, so when they're dealing with me per se, they say, okay, this kid, if you actually talk to JD, you actually know he was around a certain element growing up. So when he does that, it's not typecasting. He actually knows people like this, and he can bring this authenticity to this role, because I've actually had a conversation with him and he was not afraid to tell me his background, so that I would be like, oh God, or if they say, okay, I like, I'm around JD, he doesn't smile a lot. He's always brooding. And he's like, no, actually, where he comes from, smiling, smiling's not sweet. So it's not something he grew up doing all the time. He goes home to his cousins. They're like, why are you smiling so much, man? What's so happy about? So they just know this kid, this guy is this way. And you have to get to know him, and they can peel back those layers and say, okay, he comes from this experience, as opposed to this African-American who has no idea what that looks like. So I'm not just going to give it to him because he's a Black guy, because he won't be able to bring that authenticity to it. So having different perspectives in the room, making the decisions, you don't leave it up to people's evolution, of their thinking. You actually bring people into, into the room to make those decisions, even from the publishing on up, everybody, just making that a diverse staff, making the gatekeepers, the decision makers diverse.
And I think it all comes down to also communication. And something that I always think about is back when segregation, most of the rules were lifted on segregation in this country. The thing that happened, let's talk about schools. So schools were unsegregated. Okay, now some Black kids can go to these white schools. But the thing is, the teachers stayed the same. So the teachers were not unsegregated.
Right.
So then where's the support system then to raise these children as true actual equals? There wasn't any at the time. That's something that we're still working on. So what we have, I think we just need to keep a really open, just like this conversation is, a really open line of communication with room for lots of error and lots of, did I just say that? My bad. It's lots of that from both ends, from the producers, the authors, the publishers, and the talent. And so I think too, we can all make a commitment as narrators who've been around a while to the new narrators and to other narrators, that we'll do that. We'll keep those lines of communication open. We won't just grin and bear it. We won't accept stuff that isn't fair, because down the line, this new narrator is going to be so overwhelmed coming from the Puerto Rican barrio over here, and somebody offers them an audiobook and they're like, but you have to do all this research and blah, blah, blah. And they're like, never mind, never mind. That's what we're doing to our own people if we accept things without at least voicing, hey, just so you know, this is a lot of work. Is there any support, that I can get in here? Or will there be a Spanish somebody who speaks Spanish editing the book, so I don't feel alone, like I'm thrown to the wolves if I make a mistake? Or little questions that kind of put it in their minds, like, oh, they are doing a lot of more work than I even thought. And they don't, a lot of times, producers, casting directors, they don't mean to like throw you to the wolves. It's just that if we keep accepting things without telling them that we're struggling, that it's harder, that it takes more time to produce something that they'll be super proud of and might win an Audie, then they won't know. They won't know, and they'll expect it from the new narrators, So, yeah.
I love that idea of taking that pledge. I willingly take it. And I think I would just like to ask in return of our institutions, our publishers and producers, that they would pledge to take risks in return. If we pledge to be open and have this conversation and be communicative, because institutions have more risk tolerance than individuals, right? Like, we're out here by ourselves, we're feeding ourselves and our pets and our kids and taking care of our parents. And that $15 a finished hour or whatever it is big to us, right? This is, the institution can absorb more than
Yeah.
a human being can absorb. And so I feel like if we can agree that they'll absorb some of the risk and we'll keep the lines of communication open, that feels like an actual sort of plan to moving into a different kind of space.
That feels like parity, right? That feels like we're both putting something into the game here. Like, I would say that I would be open. I'm okay to be messy, make mistakes with me. And like, oh, I don't want to say this because I don't want to be insulting, or I don't want to know. It's okay. I want to have the messy conversations because that's how things change. That's what I'm doing.
Right.
And then the other side is it's exactly what you're saying, January. It's take, what risks are you taking? What are you putting on the line, right? It's money. It's your rep saying, you know what, author, I know this is what you wanted, but this is what we think it should be.
It's the best.
This is what we stand for here. We don't want this. We want this. And it's not somebody we audition. It's somebody we know because listen to her. She's amazing. And she's won a bajillion awards and you're a fool not to have her. Right? I mean, that's risk.
Yeah.
Right? And like that to me is what partnership that wants to evolve looks like, you know? So you said it right. I mean, you said it just right.
Thanks, man. So we're past time, and I know people here are parents and have other things to do with their lives. So I want to offer everybody.
Wait, no, this is an escape. No, I'm just
Well, I
kidding.
don't know. You don't have to tell them you're done.
I'm still working.
Is there anything?
I want to just say that there's so many other questions that I hope like get addressed later. There was a couple things in thinking about this day. I was like, oh, what about this? You know, just other things that we didn't even touch upon. It's so great to be with you guys and swept away with the things, big things that we kind of covered. And I think there's more conversations to have. And I think, you know, we could keep these questions floating. I mean, I have some, maybe I'll write you guys in the email, the things we didn't touch upon. Like, I'd really like to know about this, you know, whatever, how specific do you need to get? And anyway, many other things. And maybe more forums for this kind of discussion, because I would really appreciate being with all of you guys. I do not have this conversation every day. I live in Boulder, you know, Colorado's so white. It's like, for sure, I look on the street, I'm like, oh, an Asian, a Black guy, and I'm counting them every day. And I do not have this conversation that much. So it's so good.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all so much. This has been actually quite cathartic and healing for me personally. Even before I got into my own stuff, I just am so grateful to have this forum and see you all and speak with you all, because that's another thing about our industry, right? We're always in these little soundproof boxes by ourselves. And so it's a great joy to be a part of a community like this. I feel so energized and engaged. And I think we can make some change. I'm really excited about it. So thank you all for taking the time. Thank you to Penguin Random House for giving us the platform. Everybody stay safe and well, and see you at the virtual Audis.
Thank you.
Thank you.